Renters' Rights Bill. So this has passed Parliament now, or House of Commons or House of Lords, last week. It's going to become law once it gains royal assent in the next week or so. And this right here has been spoken about for some time because it definitely benefits renters. It takes a lot of power away from landlords. And the speculation has been that if this passes, potentially what that will mean is that landlords will start to sell down. Now, that could be deemed as a good thing because if landlords who are holding on to multiple properties decide to sell because this bill doesn't put things in their favor, you can see how, as a first time buyer, it could be beneficial for you, right? But only if you're in the market to buy property. If you're a renter, you're not in a position to be able to buy property. There is a huge speculation about the fact that this could actually be inflationary to rent. So, i.e., rents are going up because as these the rental stock gets sold to people who want to buy homes and live in them, you're going to have fewer properties in the rental market. So there are different ways and approaches to this. I want to focus on three, I guess, angles of attack. The first for renters, the second for landlords, and the third for pensioners. Now, as you probably gathered from the channel, if you've been following for some time, I'm an accidental landlord. So our home back home in the UK right now is rented out. And this will impact me. So I'm going to try and be as unbiased as I possibly can, but I can't help but look at this from a landlord's point of view as well, because I am a accidental landlord. But before we jump into the article so we can explain what's going on with this bill, if you do get value from this video, and only if you get value from this video, please consider, subscribing. We are this close to 70,000 subscribers right now. We'll probably cross it Wednesday this week, I anticipate, and we're aiming to get to 80,000 by the end of the year. It's only going to happen with your help. So consider subscribing, hit that notification bell to be notified when I upload another video like this. And if you don't mind, if you do get value from this as well, also tap that like button as well. Gives the YouTube algorithm a nod to say that, yeah, you enjoyed the video and other people also deserve to see it as well. Right, so let's jump into the article. Now, I'm going to link this, okay? But there's quite a lot here, and I'm going to focus on this part right here. So what does it mean for tenants? And from this, we'll also be able to paint the juxtaposition for landlords as well. So it means a sure deal for tenants. The bill gives tenants more flexibility and more certainty over their living situation. As it stands, most tenants sign up to a fixed term, usually 12 or 24 months before the tenancy becomes periodic or rolling, meaning that either party can usually give 2 months' notice to end the tenancy. Under the new bill, all tenancies will become rolling. They will have no end date, and tenants can give 2 months' notice at any point if they want to move out, as long as they have been there for at least 4 months. Landlords would need to use a Section 8 notice to end the tenancy. Now, I can see from a renter's point of view where the benefit is more control. If I'm completely honest, though, if you went into a 12-month tenancy, that is a bit of security on both sides of the aisle, right? Whether you're the landlord or not, whether you're the landlord or the renter, you know that you've got a home for 12 months or for 24 months, whatever term it is that you signed up for. And I think them having it go on to rolling basis all of a sudden, from a contractual point of view, doesn't really make that much sense to me. Because surely if you're a renter, you will want to go into a property where you're planning to be there for at least a year, because moving is stressful and moving can be expensive. So you want to go in there for the longer term. I can understand that it would come in and be beneficial if, for example, you moved into the property and something you didn't notice in the property became a problem, right? But in the real world, I don't see how you would have gone to view a property and not noticed something like mold, for example, where this would really be kind of like a get out clause as a addition to the bill. And, there is one thing that concerns me as a landlord, and this is the idea that you'd have to use Section 8 as a means to get tenants out. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But this particular part, I guess, gives a little bit more security for the tenants, for sure. Gives them more control. If they need to move for personal reasons, 2 months' notice, absolutely. But you could have done that under a fixed term tenancy anyway, well, after the tenancy, I guess, really. So, I can see how this potentially benefits the renters more than it does the landlords. Now, it also says here This is something else that is being introduced into the bill. Tenants will have more certainty over how much they pay. Landlords will be able to increase rent only once a year. They will have to give 2 months' notice of any change, and the rent increase would need to be in line with market rates. Now, it says here tenants can challenge an increase. At the moment, rent reviews clauses in tenancy contracts mean that there is no consistency in how, when, and by how much a landlord can change the rent, meaning that tenants are vulnerable to shock increases. This I can 100% get behind, especially in places like London, where you may have a landlord who wants to up the rent quite significantly because he's been behind the market for some time. The only instance where I can see that this might potentially be an issue for a landlord is if you have a landlord that's coming off a low mortgage rate. So say a 2% mortgage rate going on to a 5% mortgage rate, you have to give the landlord the latitude to be able to change and structure the rent in a way that still makes sense from a landlord and an ownership point of view. Because if your increase, because you're coming off a mortgage, is going to be £200 per month, a lot of landlords may not necessarily have that as a margin to be able to eat up. So, and given the fact that the whole structure of how taxes work on rental income now, the government is missing something here. And I feel like this is something that potentially penalizes the landlords quite massively through no fault of their own. Now, I can see it from the renter's point of view, making sure that unscrupulous landlords do not increase rent by 500-600 quid all of a sudden because they want to. I get that. We're in Dubai right now and we already have rent protections in place, so there is a place for it. But I think there is a number of scenarios where this could potentially be bad or even worse for the landlords, particularly in the mortgage situation itself. Now, it says here, easy access. So the process of securing a rental property in the first place should get easier for tenants. To end bidding wars, all properties will be advertised with an asking rent which is fixed. It will be illegal for landlords to accept higher offers. They will be banned from asking for or accepting upfront rent payments. And this, I think, is again in places like London. I have no problem with this. If you have a property that you're renting out for 1,500 quid a month, for example, that's the rate that you advertise. That's the amount it goes on the market for. If you want it to be 1,700, then that's what you should put it on the market for. In places like London, where you have these secret bidding wars, where people are asked to submit an envelope with their offer, that is unscrupulous. I can't get behind that. So this, I think, is positive. And if the landlord doesn't like it, then tough. I can definitely get behind this. It also says here, and this is probably one of the contentious pieces, tenants will have the right to keep pets. Landlords are not allowed to unreasonably say no to pet requests, and tenants will be allowed to challenge a decision. And landlords will not be able to discriminate against tenancy applications from those with children or those on benefits. Let's talk about the pets things first. I think that right there is going to be problematic for landlords. So, for example, for me, we've got a 4-bedroom, beautiful house. Do we want pets in the house that aren't trained? Probably not. Do we want pets to cause damage to our properties? There are mixed opinions on this because on one quarter of the research of this particular part of the bill, people are saying, well, landlords should just insist that they have pet insurance to cover any damages. But from what I'm also hearing and reading, the MPs voted against that when they were finalizing this bill. So if you're a landlord with a beautiful property and you have a family move in with pets that destroy the property, you effectively have to foot the bill. You let me know in the comment section down below whether you think that is fair or not, because I think that is problematic. That is penalizing landlords unduly. And that's one of my big concerns for our property with a family that might go in there with pets or request to have pets in there. How do you know that they're not going to cause any damage to the property? And should the landlord be the one to foot the bill for it? The other part around families with children or families that are on benefits, I mean, look, we've got a 4-bedroom house, so we're looking for a family to go in there, which is right. Them being on benefits, that I think is going to be part of the screening process, although this will not be allowed on here. But I think it is part of the screening process that most landlords go for. I mean, look, at the end of the day, as a landlord, you own the property. If you're unable to evict tenants because, now they have to be in breach of the contract for a Section 8 to apply because you can no longer use Section 21, this is going to be a problem. Because if for whatever reason the benefits are cut, and we know that we might be looking down the barrel of welfare reforms at some stage in this country, how is that going to impact? I mean, uh, this is a contentious one, and I'm not saying it because you want to discriminate against people who are actually on benefits. But I think for most landlords, they want to make sure that they have a family in that can afford to pay the rent, regardless of any benefit top up. Benefit top up should not be part of the rent expense, if that makes any sense from a landlord's point of view. I don't know. You let me know what you think in the comment section down below, because again, this is very, very nuanced and we have quite a wide range of people who watch the channel. Now, what I will say here is there's quite a bit there, but I do want to go up to this section because the flagship part of this bill is getting rid of Section 21s. Now, Section 21s, from my understanding, is when a landlord could just end a tenancy with 2 months' notice and be like, "You've got to move." And I can understand it from a family's point of view, where it's like you've got kids in school, and all of a sudden you're told that you need to move out from this property. You need to find something in the same vicinity within that same catchment. It can have a massive, massive impact. But with Section 28, the only reasons why you can use Section 28 is if they're in breach of contract. And let me just read you this section here in landlords. Landlords will lose this power, which is the power to use Section 21 under the new bill. Tenants will be protected from evictions for the first 12 months of a tenancy. After that, landlords will be able to give notice only if they want to sell or move into the property. They can evict a tenant at any point if the tenant breaches the contract using a Section 8 notice. So they cannot ask anyone to leave as a landlord unless they want to sell or move back into the property. But then there could be a whole host of reasons why a landlord may say, "Look, I need my property back." They might want to rent it out to family or something like that. Who knows? But under this, currently, as we know, unless they want to sell or move into the property. And I'm hearing that if they evict someone because they wanted to sell their property and change their mind, they have I think it's 12 or 14-month restriction on reletting the property. This massively puts a negative. This is bad for landlords. I mean, look, it's simple. It's simple as that. It's bad for landlords, and this is where I kind of want to maybe talk about pensioners, okay? Because again, as I said at the top of the video, lots of people that I know on the channel, thousands of comments. People have put money into property. That's going to fund their retirement through the rental income. This type of bill takes the power away from you if you have done that. And this will almost feel like a kick in the teeth. You've done everything correct up until this point, putting money in the places where you thought it was going to be solid and it's going to be a great place for you to generate an income from, only for these types of rules. Now, here's the scenario. This is the nightmare for any landlord. Let's just say you're a pensioner and you're relying on this property. You only have maybe one property, maybe two, if you're lucky, three, if you're very, very lucky, and you're relying on that rental income. And you have a tenant in there who does not pay rent. They are in arrears. Well, under Section 8, we already know that the courts have months of a backlog. Months of backlog. So this means that now you're going to see more and more tenants be in a position where if the tenant does not pay rent, it's going to be more difficult to get them out quicker because there's a backlog in the courts. How is that fair? If you're relying on that income for income purposes, your rental income for income purposes in your retirement years, how is that fair? Could you possibly afford to have that? Now, yeah, you can get insurances for, missed rent. It will serve you for a period of time. But if it takes you a year, does that completely put you off? That's one of my big concerns. And what that means effectively is the vetting process is going to be more stringent. We're going to look for tenants who have good jobs. We're going to be more thorough in the checks. And most landlords, I think, are probably going to insist on a guarantor that is also vetted with a separate contract, which is referenced in the tenancy agreement to ensure that if there are any missed payments, at least there is a means of recourse. Is that the right thing? I don't know. You tell me in the comment section down below. But as a landlord, these are the things that I identify as things that will have to be done. Now, when this ascends and actually passes as law, I'm sure there will be other mitigation tactics or things that you can do as a landlord. We'll cover those at some point. But this definitely means that renting or owning property as a rental proposition becomes less and less attractive to individuals. Now, where does this potentially go? And this is where I'm going to end the video. And again, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If private individuals are being pushed out of being landlords through these types of bills, who do you think is going to own all of the housing stock in the future? The very people that we don't already trust that caused the housing crisis in 2007, 2008, those institutions, those companies will be the ones that will own the housing stock. And so my take is this: if you're not investing right now, you should probably be investing in those kind of companies, because they will ultimately gobble up all of the housing stock. And I think the pertinent question is, who do you want to own the housing stock? Would you rather have individuals, and maybe you own the housing stock, be part of the group that own the housing stock, or do you want HSBC, Barclays, and some of the faceless banks to own them? Let me know in the comment section down below. Cheers.